Thanks for tuning in to the Diaphragm Dynasty. I'm back with another topic that I just thought about the other day. Now, this topic is really rooted in the era that you were born in or the era that you were raised in. So, we know that most of these comparison topics are subjective. Most of them, you can base them off of sales and things like that. But usually, I base the discussions or debates on quality of music and things like that, discography, how many hits somebody has, how many undeniable hits really people have. So the comparison of Chris Brown and Usher is, you know, two of the best performers, artists, singers, dancers, talents of any musical era. Who has the better catalog or discography? Now, I believe Chris has the better voice, but Usher has more range because Usher uses the falsettos and the different things that the different tones he can do with his voice is uniquer than Chris. Chris usually sings and maybe a couple of keys, I feel, but Usher has so much range and he gives you so much passion with the singing. But of course, he's from a different era. I believe he grew up in the church as well, so that has a lot to do with it, I believe. But discography wise, Chris Brown has, I want to say he has a better debut album, and both Chris Brown and Usher released albums when they were in their teenagers, so around when they were 15, 16 years old. But I do think Chris Brown had the better debut album, even though Usher had top notch writers like Dave Hollister and Devontae Swing from Jodeci and uh, Donnell Jones, and he even had Puff EP in the project. So I don't think, I think for one, the album that they made for Usher was ahead of his time because it somebody that young is not supposed to be singing about the content that he had. So it kind of threw everybody off. But Chris Brown's album was just right. It was a lot of pop on it. It was a lot of kiddish type love songs that it was made for when he was 15 or 16 years old. So it just made sense back then. But Usher, all in all, though, I think Usher has a way better discography and catalog. Just for a simple, he's been out longer for two. I mean, for one, but for two, he's been producing at a high clip with some of the great producers and writers. I don't think Chris Brown really ever had that, so to speak. He's doing most of his own writing. He's finding writers, but they're lesser known writers. Usher had the top of the top. He had Jermaine Dupri. He had Puff Resources at one point. He had um, Confessions itself, that speaks alone, which Confessions, I mean, if you want to be honest, separates him from most artists other than a R. Kelly or Michael Jackson or Prince. If you're not named three of those, you don't have a better discography than what Usher has. Confessions alone put him in a different stratosphere, made him Hall of Fame, all of those things, and he was Hall of Fame really before then. But the Confessions albums really created distance, kind of like when Usain Bolt goes on those runs and you don't even see the next person in the camera. He created that type of separation. So Confessions, like I said, it's definitely gonna put him apart from Chris Brown by itself, because he doesn't have Chris Brown doesn't have a Confessions type album. Nobody really does, other than those three artists I named before. Then Usher has 8701, which is a project that is really underrated but has a lot of hits on it as well. So I don't think Chris Brown even has an 8701 album. Now he might have something else in Usher's discography. He might have that, but as far as that goes, he doesn't have either one of those albums. So I believe, without a doubt, Usher has a better discography. Of course, now of course, Chris Brown might have more impactful singles. Now, when you think about his singles, songs like Run It, Kiss Kiss, No Air with Jordan Sparks, Residuals. Residuals is my favorite track ever from Chris Brown, just because of what it did for R&B and music and other artists being able to jump on the track and remix it and make their own verse. So it was very powerful in that way. It's a very underrated song too. I believe it only made it to 40 in the top 100 on Billboard. But nevertheless, I think it was a slept on track, and I think Chris is still kind of blackballed in some ways because some of the songs that he makes doesn't really get a lot of shine. What he does on tour and the work that he's done is still going unnoticed amongst those that um, are not really fans of the genre. But what he's doing, he's working harder than the Taylor Swifts. He's working harder than Chapel Roans or whatever artists that you have. He's outworking those. but he's not getting the recognition because of the black ball around him. But of course, out of all of these people, Usher has probably the biggest hit amongst all of them, and that's the "Yeah" song with Lil Jon and Ludacris, because that song reached the masses. It crossed over to the pop world. It was able to be played um, in so many sports forums. It was, it wasn't even considered R&B from most people. They don't even realize this an R&B from an R&B artist, because he was able to be a chameleon in that way and be able to switch and code switch to that world. Um, so I think, yeah, really separated him, and it created so many sales for Confessions, because back then you had to buy albums and you couldn't, you really didn't have streaming. So a lot of people bought that album just for that one song, and it turns out the rest of the album didn't sound anything like that song. It was just a song to get out to the radio, and it did a great job of doing so. So it put him in a whole nother stratosphere. But I think if you want a discography or a catalog that you can do a road trip with, no skips, or if you want to do a DJ set to, or if you just want somebody with an impeccable, timeless discography, you have to look no other than Usher Raymond, especially in comparisons to Chris Brown. And that's no diss to what Chris Brown does. Huge fan of what Chris Brown does, especially that first album and singles here and there. But I think Usher has the better body of work. Of course, he's a lot older than Chris Brown is, but and Chris still has a ways to go. And I think Chris Brown will eventually get there. He'll be able to work through the black ball and being able to get some kind of closeness to Usher in discography and catalog. But tell me who you think, your thoughts of who is the better artist between Chris Brown and Usher. And until next time, I'll see you next time.